I was in a very scenic place recently with the river Manuni flowing, and I was at the bank of the river, and I was trying to hold on to the water. And the tighter that I made my grip, the quicker the water just escaped from between my fingers. It didn't stay. And the moment I opened my palm and I became acceptant, I accepted the river in its free flowing form. The At least it stayed for a while with me, right? So the same concept, you can visualize that in that river example, but the same concept applies to relationship, that the tighter you try to hold it, the more the person feels stifled and they want to break free. Whereas the more you provide an environment that says, okay, I'm going to support you regardless, but I'm also going to give you guidance, because the guidance part is very important. And this is where a lot of new parents are sometimes going to the other extreme, saying, do whatever you do. It doesn't work that way, because our children don't have executive decision making capabilities, and their prefrontal cortex, which is the front of the brain, which is the decision making part, actually gets fully developed up until age 24.
Welcome back to another episode of Tea with a Teacher, a podcast by Edjobster. I'm your host, Syed Hamid Hassan. Let's listen to the stories of inspiring teachers who have made an impact in lives of children. On this very special episode of Tea with a Teacher, we have with us Ms. Ritika Subhash, founder of the Parent Academy. She is a teacher, marketer, entrepreneur, and an author. I welcome you to the podcast Tea with a Teacher. You started your career as a teacher and now you are a parenting coach. I believe you had a roller coaster ride in your career journey. Please share about your journey to the Parenting Academy and why you started this Parent Academy.
Sure. So I'll take you back a little bit. And I haven't been a traditional teacher really, but I've been in the education sector for about 10 years now. So to start off with, I pursued my engineering in Delhi, in India, in Jamia Millia Islamia. And then post my bachelor's in technology, I moved to the US. I pursued my master's in management information systems from Texas A&M University. Those couple of years were extremely transformative for me. I got to learn a lot in terms of being independent, in terms of really finding finding my passion. And one of those things was working with people. I really enjoyed working with people. Collaboration, a lot of collaboration that happened during the master's program wasn't something that we were really exposed to in India, because the concept that was very much valid back then, and things are changing now, but people used to think of education as a space to compete, whereas internationally it is a place to collaborate and for you to really come up with joint ideas and to create something new together. So that part was really eye-opening for me during my master's. And after that, I worked in the US for 2 to 3 years. I was in the healthcare IT sector. And there too, my role was in the role of change management. So I was working in the healthcare change management, which was getting the healthcare system from paper and pen onto a software system. So during that time, I realized that yes, there is a huge need when we talk about even technology adoption and integration. There's a huge human component to it. And that's something that I found my alignment with, that I could really relate to people, I could handhold them and get them to adopt technology. When I decided to come back to India in the year 2010, I was looking at different opportunities and not to just go back into the IT segment. And I explored the education sector quite a fair bit that time, because I felt when I was interacting with my extended family, I felt that not much had changed in the last 7 to 10 years. Children were still going to the school unwillingly. They had little motivation to learn, and it was just a process that was happening by the way of going through the motions of the day. So, being from the technology background, it was easy for me to work in the education technology sphere, and that's when I joined India-based edtech company. And I worked in the space of bringing maths education technology to schools in North and Northeast India. So while I wasn't a traditional teacher, I got access to classrooms. I got a lot of access to teachers and students and I got to understand very intimately as to what their challenges are, because it's easy to just come with a software solution and say, use this is better than what you're doing. But unless you have the empathy and unless you have the deep understanding of what solution your program is providing or what problem it is solving for them, it is really hard to convince in terms of adoption, and you don't even get the value for it, and the children don't get value. So my work since then, since I've been in edtech, has been to ensure that the end user gets value and that their educational journey gets better than what it was before and becomes more meaningful for them. So overall, that's how the edtech journey started. And in between this, of course, lots of things happened. I became a parent in 2014. Then I started writing for children. I wrote children's books. I have published 4 books, written 4 books, and now self-published 2 more. And then I also did the certification in storytelling. So I used to run storytelling classes for children, and that too primarily came out of the fact that there weren't a lot of engaging activities in my vicinity to help get my son to enjoy the act of storytelling and enjoy theatrics and stuff like that. So I thought, why not do it myself? So those things have been quite, I would say, transformational in bringing me to the place that I am right now, where I'm serving both the edtech market. So right now I head Manga High in the region of Asia, East Asia, Europe, and Middle East as well. So this is again a maths edtech program, and we work primarily with schools. So that part of my life is still very much active. But on the other hand, because I got very personally involved with parenting, of course, with my son, and I started understanding the nuances of this relationship and how to make it better. I put a lot of time and effort into really equipping myself with tools to become a better parent. And all of that came from this need to show up in this relationship in a better space, because I felt the biggest problems I feel is nobody prepares you for it, right? You just come into it with your own thoughts and with your own cognitive biases and with your own preconceived notions, and you think some things work. And yes, you get some inputs from your elders, and that's also valuable. What they come with is experience, and that is very valuable. But the truth of the matter is that the world around us has changed. So the way that parenting happened, say 20, 30 years ago, all the concepts cannot simply be transferred to today, because we have to look at the environment that we live with. What are the challenges of this day and age? So I started understanding those fundamentals. I started looking at that. And that's also what motivated me to start the Parent Academy, because I felt that it wasn't just me. Everyone that I saw was struggling in one way or the other. It's a very meaningful relationship. It's probably the deepest and the most connected relationship that you have in your life. Yet, in our modern day lives, it has become so challenging to raise children, to raise, productive human beings that are motivated, that are driven, that contribute to the society, that do well for themselves and well for others. So all of that became sort of a driving force and mission. So there are 3, if I look at it, I put these 3 separate parts to my personality and my life and work. One being in the edtech space, where I'm looking at deeper access and larger sort of, my circle of influence is large in that sense. Then I write, because I find that a good form of expression. I love to write, and I write in rhyme. So it's just something that comes very naturally to me. So I write for that. And then the third part is the Parent Academy, where I create conscious parenting courses. And I also do one-to-one coaching with a lot of parents. And my sort of the segment is very large for me. I work with parents of newborns and young children all the way up till teenagers. So it's just something that motivates me. It gives me a reason to get up in the morning. And that's where I'm at right now.
That's fascinating. Your story about your journey from where you started and where you are today. And certainly, when you understand and you actually understand the problem, you are into it, then only you try to build a solution around it. When you became a parent, you understand the problems that other parents must be facing. And certainly, you decided to create programs for parents. You are a good writer, and as you were not getting the environment, the crowd for storytelling, you started with your own child, and then you exceeded beyond. So that is wonderful. I think that's how great things start. You first feel the pain, and then you solve the problems. That's amazing.
This saying that I heard somewhere, and I really resonate with it, that you are best equipped to serve the person that you once were.
True.
So if you think about it, really, like, it's not like if you haven't experienced it yourself, it's very hard to empathetically give a solution, right? But if you've been in the midst of it, and if you really understand how challenging it is, you can really come with solutions that work, rather than giving 30,000 feet above the ground kind of yarn.
True. That works. That's amazing. So as you are a parenting coach now, and there are a lot of problems that today's generation parents have, and the major there are many concerns. So after listening to all these parents, what are the major concerns of the parents? See, for me, what I understand, well, I'm not a parent, but still what I understand, that the children do not listen to their parents, do not do what they say, and the parents get frustrated at that point, and this is majorly with problem with the teenagers which are there. So how do you address to these kind of parents and these kind of problems?
So, when we talk about these problems, I would say these are manifestations of some issue. So, issue is not that the child doesn't listen. There is some other issue, and the manifestation of it is that the child is not listening, or you don't have, you know, they're not accepting what you're saying to them. So, my starting point is very different. My starting point is not to look at the problem within the child. My starting point is to look at what is going on inside the parent, because I believe parenting is all about the parent, it's not about the child. So, the way you show up as a parent creates a certain environment, creates a certain relationship, it creates a sort of connection. Now, that connection could be strong, where even if you take some, what I say is this is called the building the emotional bank balance. So, if you and your child have built an emotional bank balance through a lot of connecting activities in your journey of parenting, then every now and then you can withdraw a little bit from that bank balance, right? And that always happens. You can't always be a pleasant, peaceful, put together parent. There will be days when you absolutely don't have the wherewithal and you're drained, and you will be triggered with something or the other. So that's the truth. And this is what I ask parents to be aware of, that if you aim for perfection, you are really headed in the wrong direction. Aim for the right foundation, and then work on that foundation so that you are able to withdraw from that. Sometimes if you're triggered, and even if you are not showing up at as the best parent, do it, and then come and realize that there was something that you could have done better, and then talk about it and say that I could have done better. When you accept your follies in front of your children, they see you as humans. They see you as not on a pedestal, not as somebody who knows everything and who's there only to tell you what to do and how to lead your life. They see you as human beings, just like themselves, who can make mistakes. So, now coming back to the fact that when you say children don't listen, why are they not listening? What is going on inside them is something that you need to understand. Is this a personality? Is this their way of creating their own safety net or shell? Have you been giving them so many instructions that they have zoned out? Absolutely, because they feel like every time an interaction with my parent is only transactional. Have you had food? Are you sleeping on time? Have you done your homework? All those are transactional interactions that we have during the day. That is not bond building time. If you are investing in bond building time, if you're investing in knowing your child and knowing their inner world, then that is a starting point, right? And then if you are willing and accepting of showing up as vulnerable to your child, that's when they will see that yes, there is a bond. My parent is sharing with me, so I will come and share with them. My parent is listening to me, so I will listen to them. It has to be a give and take. It's not something that just because I'm older, the other person is entitled to listen to me. It doesn't work in any relationship. Not just it doesn't work in a parent-child relationship. It doesn't work in a spousal relationship. It doesn't work in a parent-in-law or son-in-law or daughter-in-law relationship. Age is not the criteria for somebody giving you the respect and the attention that you think you deserve. What you really need to do is invest in that relationship, invest through these emotional bank balance building activities, invest through being vulnerable, invest through active listening, right? Another very important part of relationship building is effective communication. And within effective communication, it's, active listening. We are born with 2 ears and one mouth. That signifies that we should at least listen twice as much as we speak.
Right.
But it is really the opposite. We do the opposite of that. We talk a lot. We feel that we are all filled with wisdom. And so let us disperse it to the world. But it takes a lot of courage to sit with that information and say, no, I'm willing to listen to you. To sit in a space and say that I thought I know who you are, but actually I don't. So let's tell me who you are. Tell me what you like. Tell me what you want. The assumption that as parents we know what our children are like and what they want is the biggest mistake that we make in this journey. And the more comfortable that we get with this idea of being in a space of I don't know, the more we'll be able to build that bond. So again, this aspect of children not listening to you, it has so many dimensions that I can't even begin to give you an answer for that. It's a multi-layered question, and the way you work towards it is through those bond building daily activities.
I think building a bond is very important. And what I feel like parents think that they own the child. And yeah, certainly they think that they know about the child and they own the child, so they can take decisions on behalf of the child. So that works for until a certain age. But you parents need to also give freedom to take decisions, to become responsible at a certain age. Then only good parenting could happen. That is something that I feel like if you are going to think that you can control something. I'll give you a simple example. The more you control, the more you oppression won't be the right word, but the more you try to control the child and you just say no, 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 and you have to do things in a certain way, certainly it is going to bounce back to you.
Yeah.
Child would do what you don't want them to do. So what
Mhm.
is your opinion around this thing?
So this concept I call controlling versus coaching. So this is something that I've also learned from one very popular parenting expert, Dr. Laura Markham. I follow her work. I'm part of her course cohort, and I also read her books. So this controlling versus coaching is a very important concept because think of it like water. I mean, this is a recent podcast that I recorded. Also, I was in a very scenic place recently with the river Manuni flowing, and I was at the bank of the river and I was trying to hold on to the water. And the tighter that I made my grip, the quicker the water just escaped from between my fingers. It didn't stay. And the moment I opened my palm and I became acceptant, I accepted the river in its free flowing form. The At least it stayed for a while with me, right? So the same concept, you can visualize that in that river example, but the same concept applies to relationship. That the tighter you try to hold it, the more the person feels stifled and they want to break free.
Right.
Whereas the more you provide an environment that says, okay, I'm going to support you regardless, but I'm also going to give you guidance, because the guidance part is very important. And this is where a lot of new parents are sometimes going to the other extreme, saying, do whatever you do. It doesn't work that way, because our children don't have executive decision making capabilities. And their prefrontal cortex, which is the front of the brain, which is the decision making part, actually gets fully developed up until age 24. So this was
Okay.
a huge revelation to me, because I used to think that if at 18 you can vote and you can drive, that means that you figured out the world. But
I just learned that with from you.
yeah, I know a lot of people don't know it. Actually, most people don't know it. I'm a certified brain coach. So in my certification, this is what we learned, and this is one of the primary things that we talk about, is that we assume that a child can make good decisions at a certain age, but up until 24, our brains are not developed to their full capacity. And after 24, of course, the full development has happened. The neurogenesis, the new neurons forming still happens still throughout our life, but the physical brain development gets completed at age 24. Now imagine that, and you mentioned at the beginning of the podcast that teenagers don't listen to the parents, and teenagers don't do things right. A teenage is still 10 years away. A teenager is still, at least 8 to 10 years away from their full brain development. So how are we expecting them to take good decisions? So you see, our understanding of our physiology is so poor that we think that, children should be doing that. Now, the flip side to that is, we can't take this information as crutch and say that, don't make any decisions because you don't have the capability, I will make it for you. So you see, it's a very fine balance. You have to know the physiology part of it, but you have to know that you have to prepare the child for decision making very early in life. Suddenly, if you keep making all the decisions for them till age 23 and 11 months, and then come the age 24, you say now you do everything yourself, the child will be lost, because you have not given them the right equipment and tools to work with so that they can make their decisions. So the best way to do it is give age appropriate responsibilities, give age appropriate tasks to the child as early as age 2, 3. And it can start with giving them, peas to peel in the kitchen, or to wipe whatever mess they've made, or to fold their laundry at age 8, 9, 10, whatever. There are so many ways that you can do it. There's so much free information available online in terms of age appropriate chores that you can, use. But give them the responsibility and then be okay with their decisions. If on one hand we say that we want to make you responsible, but on the other hand we tell them all the decisions that you're making are wrong and let me come and do it better for you, how counterproductive will it be? So as parent, it is our internal struggle to show up as perfect. It is our internal struggle to say that, my child's project should be the best in the class, so let me help and do it so that it looks pretty. But we forget that ultimately what matters is them doing it themselves, right? That's where the learning is happening. Just putting up a pretty project at the front of the classroom and giving them some prize or certificate is not going to add any value to their learning and their journey. So again, are you seeing so many dimensions, right? When
Yes.
you pick up a topic, I can go on and on because there's so many dimensions to it. There's the parental dimension, there is the environmental dimension, there's the inner world of the child dimension, there is the inner voices that are there inside the parent's brain. So many things that you can talk about, and which is why I find this so fascinating. That even if even if in my half an hour or 1 hour that I speak with you or whatever it is, if somebody can take out one line that sticks with them, or one information or one piece of knowledge that sticks with them, maybe it will transform their parenting experience.
Certainly. It will really help listeners who are going to listen to this podcast to learn about, like I learned about, that the front brain is the decision making part in a child's body. So that fascinated me. So, well, moving ahead, nowadays the biggest concern is the amount of time children spend on digital devices. How can these parents help their children to engage in other activities and reduce screen time? Because at the same time, you also see that parents are also spending a lot of time on the digital devices. And certainly that even if they want to just keep the child busy, they give the devices as well. Infants and toddlers, when they are eating food, and when the parents want to spend their quality time, they also give the devices, and that leads to addiction to these devices. And there we have seen many cases, many accidents because of overusage of digital devices. So how can parents be more responsible and reduce the screen time for children?
So again, a multi-layered question, but I think a good place to start is to not give the devices so early. In fact, the American Pediatric Association is now coming up with the recommendations of not giving screen time early. Earlier, I think it was 8 years. recommendation for a device to the child. I think now the new recommendation is not before like 14, 15, like even that. So these are things that are just coming up now. And think of it, if you really think consciously, it makes sense, right? Any conscious thinking person should know that, why should you use a device as a babysitter? Why are we hooking children to these fast moving images? They are so colorful that the real life actually pales in comparison to what children see on these devices. And then you come up with all these problems of child not being able to sit for long, not being able to hold conversations, not being willing to go out in the playground and play because obviously they are more attracted to something else that they can do. Then there are related physiological issues, there are obesity issues, there are insulin issues, so many things that come up. And um, the most worrisome of that is, of course, the mental health impact of it. The fact that children are more isolated when they are on their devices, and their personality changes. Especially with teens, you see that, parents say that this child was not like that earlier, and now they are constantly on their device. They don't want to talk to the family. There's a disconnect and all of that. So my logic as a parent, and I'm glad that my husband and I sort of resonated with this and we were aligned on this, because another part of the parenting, which again is a whole topic altogether, is how do you align as a spouse, or how do you align as parents on what parenting methodology to follow. But luckily for me, we aligned with this, and we didn't use media or technology as a crutch. When we were busy, it was very uncomfortable. It is taxing to be constantly engaging a child, especially nowadays when we have nuclear families, we have single children families a lot more than before. The parents have to step in and become the entertainer, the sibling, the everything for the child. And it is taxing on parents because most households are dual income, dual workers. Both parents are working, and there's obviously paucity of time and resources. So I'm not saying it is easy, but it's definitely worth it, because you're giving a foundation to the child which is grounded and rooted in the real world. It is not grounded and rooted in virtual world, which can fall apart, right? Tomorrow, if let's say there is global mass internet outage and there is no access to these devices or games, what will you do then?
I'll be
So,
glad.
and you'll be glad. I don't know about if I can say that now. My entire work and my profession revolves around technology. So I'm very blessed to have Wi-Fi. I'm blessed to have technology and media and devices. But that's the whole dichotomy of it, right? That's the I don't know how to say, it's a catch-22 for us who work in the digital space, that we need it, yet we know that dependence on it is also not good for us and for our families. So the only thing you can do is mindful usage. Even with technology, there are different things that you can do. So if it's active technology where you are actively engaging versus passively just consuming, that is always better. So when I talk about these games-based learning tools, so for example with Manga High, the reason I align with it is it's not a passive information consuming platform. It is a very much a platform where children are building their own learning pathways, and they are learning maths as they solve problems. So it's a very interactive way of learning. So that's a much better way than simply consuming information online. So one way, like I said, your initial question was how can parents help prevent excessive screen time. One is that don't introduce screen time to them for as long as you can, as long as you can hold it away. And when you do have to give them access, try to give them television access more than device access, things that they can hold in their hand. And there is a lot of research that goes to prove that there is the kind of dopamine release, the kind of excessive feeling of, yes, I'm rewarded by posting something on social media, or I'm rewarded by this. It's a lot more when you have a device in your hand. And if it's your own mobile phone, then your addiction levels are certainly higher. So there's also research to say that you are much more addicted to your own device, versus if I were to hand you somebody else's phone, you would not have the same feelings. But even with these non-living things, we are building such intricate relationships that it's really hard to disconnect ourselves from it. So the farther away the device is, the better. And if you can make regulations that work for the entire family, so you can't apply a rule to the child and it doesn't apply to you. They'll start questioning you very soon, that why are the rules different for you and not for me. So, having consistent rules is obviously helpful. Having boundaries is helpful. Building a strong foundation of sports, building a strong foundation of community interaction, meeting people on a daily basis, going out in nature. There's a professor who researches a lot about screen time. Her name is Dr. Kirsty Goodwin. She says, give green time instead of screen time. So if you can replace your screen time with green time, taking them out in the nature and in the park and stuff like that, that's obviously going to give them so much more connection and roots, that they will want to spend more time there. And then be okay with dirt and all the mess that comes with being out there. You can, if you are in a device, you can be in a sanitized room, and everything is easy for the parent, right? You don't have any mess to clean up, versus if the child is constantly rolling in the mud and they come back, you have a lot of mess to clean up. So it's inconvenient, it's uncomfortable, but you have to sit in that space. And yeah, that's how you can get them from too much usage to a more monitored, controlled usage.
I really like the term from screen time to green time.
Mm.
That would really help, because unless and until you won't give time to your children, engage with them, play with them, there is no other way they will find peace, or they will engage with other places, because you will have to first be with them. Earlier, at your stage or our stage, our young age, we used to engage with our friends. We used to play outside. We didn't had these distractions, so our only fun was, even if it is summer in Delhi, we have to go out in sun, because that's the only fun that we could have.
Yeah.
So now the parents will have to either engage with the students in sports or other activities, and also reduce their own screen times apart from their own workplaces.
Yeah.
So moving ahead, as you know that if we talk about the teaching community, majority of teachers working in schools are women. That means that both the parents are working, even the husband is working, the wife is working. The child, whose both the parents are working, lack attention from the parents, and that certainly leads to a lot of problems in the family as well as upbringing of the child. How can parents who are working should spend time and give more attention to their children?
So again, I come back to the whole idea of building emotional bank balance. You first have to figure out a system that works. Okay, so getting into parenting, and this is again something which prompted me to start the Parent Academy, is that people should start thinking very logically of how they're going to lead their lives as parents, and so that they're fulfilled as human beings, they're fulfilled as professionals, they're fulfilled as parents. There's a lot of planning that should go into it, which we really don't put in that effort for. So one is, the biggest aspect would be time management. As a parent, when you know that you have professional commitments, you have personal things to look after, the house needs to be well kept together as well, it needs to be a safe space for the child to grow in. So unless you are managing your time in a way which helps you navigate all of these roles, and do justice to all of them. I'm not saying do 100%. You cannot give your 100%. Of course, there'll be some days that will take up more energy on the professional front. There'll be some days where you have downtime, and that's okay. But as long as you can build systems around that. So one of the systems that you can build is around your time management, and I highly recommend following routines that enable you to get up earlier, following routines that enable you to sleep together. So when the child is sleeping, you sleep at that time, and then you wake up earlier and you sort of sort the things out before everyone's up. That, it's a personal suggestion. Things may work differently for others, but this is what worked for me. And I've seen it work over and over again, even in my research with the people around the globe. It's not a culture specific thing, but when you wake up early, when you wake up in the before the sunrise and around that time, you have so much more vitality to do a lot more things, and it gives you more access to plan your day. And when you are planned, you can show up better in all of the roles that I said. The other part of it is the second part is, after time management, is creating the right support system around you. So if you are in a joint setup, then discuss what roles everybody is going to play. If the mother and father are both going to be out, who is going to be the primary caregiver at that time? Is it going to be a grandparent? Is it going to be a house help? If it's a house help, then who is monitoring the house help? If it's a daycare, then what are the rules around the daycare? Should you allow the child to sleep in the daycare, or should you pick them up before? So lots of different things. But you need to have a system. You need to know that, okay, this works in my family system, and I'm going to do that. And then when you come back to the child, try to give them undivided attention for 10 minutes, 15 minutes, whatever it is that you can take out. That quantity of time really does not matter. And I'll say this out loud, it does not matter. Every day, this amount of time, don't beat yourself down if you're not able to give them 1-2 hours. But what are you doing in that 10-15 minutes? Are you connecting on a very close, vulnerable level? Are you sharing how your day went? Are you sharing your failures from the day? So with my child, even as early as 2 to 3 years old, I used to tell him what I failed at. Like I would tell him that, I was supposed to get this deadline done today and I couldn't. And even a 3-year-old could understand that. He came to me and said, "Why are you looking sad? What happened?" And so I told that this is what happened, and it really, amazed me to know that he could read my face and he could see that I made a mistake today and I'm sad about it or something like that. So the quality of interaction is what is going to determine what kind of benefits you're going to reap from that input. You can spend maybe 2 hours doing something, but if you're not intimately engaged, it may or may not reap the benefits. So again, if you can incorporate green time, if that 10-15 minutes could be you going out in the park with them. I used to do a lot of tree climbing with my son. So hang from trees, do things that others find weird, because then it also gives the confidence to your child that they can do whatever they wish, right? They don't need to conform to what society says, and they can do things differently. So being out there has lots of benefits. It's sort of like a whole medicine of sort in itself, for this issue of disconnection. And so it's really possible to have both parents working and still raising, very good, connected, responsible children. It's actually quite, it's really good the way the children can come up, depending on the kind of systems you have set up, and the kind of environment you give them, the expectations that you have, lots of different things.
So I think overall, if we talk about when we are in a situation where both the parents are working, the parents will have to create their own routines and align it with the child to actually give more time to the child and also manage their work life.
Yeah.
So if that's, I think that's the only way it is going to work. First, the parents need to discipline themselves, create their own routines. And for that, honestly, if there are new parents and they do not have that guidance, they don't know how to manage all these things. And where that is where coaching for parenting comes in.
Yeah, in fact, routines is something that I think is the primary thing. It's the most important thing, and the most misunderstood, in the sense that people don't give it the value that it deserves, and you don't understand that why routines are important. Because somewhere, especially with younger generation, they take routines as there's a negative connotation to it. They think that there's a negative connotation to routines because it means repetition, it means drudgery, it means that your life is not full of newness. So you need to create a balance of routines plus novelty. Novelty is very important in relationships. So if you keep doing everything on a routine and there is no novelty, obviously anybody is going to will feel that this, what is new in our relationship, it is just so stale. So routines are important to give yourself the right, I would say, um, the right foundation, and this is what builds your character. Routines build
True.
character. Okay, the habits build your character, but novelty is important so that you build memories, so that you build You open up your eyes towards how vast the world is, and how different experiences shape people. So to open up your horizons, novelty is important, but routines are important to build your character. And this is what new parents somehow hard, they really struggle with, because they feel like, where is my me time? My me time is not happening. I'm not able to feel rejuvenated. And that's true. I'm not denying the importance of me time, but you need to understand that you can find me time in routines also. You can get up early and you can have your me time when everybody's asleep. You can do all the morning things that you want. You can read a book, you can exercise, you can do so much. That's all me time. So when you have not used that time and you are craving me time when the rest of the family needs you, or when there are other this thing, obviously you will feel a push and a pull. So ultimately it comes down to routines.
Right. So if you want a me time, align it with your routine. Your
Exactly.
routine, if you have a routine, you put the things that you want to do in your me time in your morning or evening routine.
Yes.
And that's the me time. Just wake up early in the morning before everybody else
Yeah.
and do your me time.
Exactly. And me time doesn't have to be you spending out or burning your money or going to the spa. Again, no disrespect to people who do that. That's also important. But that's
Yes.
not the only thing. Me time is not only spending money and, doing things. Like I said, it has to be a balance of routine and novelty. Now, how you do that routine and novelty kind of balance, it's really up to you. And I would like to share with all of the parents listening here that I run a separate podcast called Parenting Truth and Dare. It's free for anybody to come in and listen. It's on Spotify. There are a lot of different topics that I cover. These are just some of the things that we cover today, but there is a whole elaborate list of things that I cover in the Parenting Truth and Dare podcast. And it's a very interesting format where we unpack a truth every time, and then there is a dare at the end that you have to go and do. So it's a very action oriented podcast. So I do encourage everyone to go in and listen.
Thank you so much, Miss Ritika, for sharing your beautiful journey with us, sharing the parenting tips, how parents should manage their children, how they should upbring themselves first, then upbringing their children. And I'm sure that a lot of teachers, parents are going to learn from this podcast, and they will certainly even get your book to learn more about parenting. Thank you so much for coming to this podcast. Don't forget to subscribe to our channel because we will be soon back with another episode of Tea with a Teacher only for you.